Could your property be for sale and you don't even know it? Could you have bought a house sending money to escrow and it's a fake link? Scammers are getting your money. Big money real estate scams going on right now and how to protect yourself. I'm Joe Ducey with the Better Business Bureau, and this is Joe Knows Better. Joining me now, Commissioner Susan Nicholson with the Arizona Department of Real Estate. Thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Happy to be here.
Year and a half in the job. How's it going?
Year and a half in the job. Prior to becoming commissioner, I used to pride myself on sort of finishing all of my tasks that I would set out for myself and had this organizational system that I prided myself on. And this is one of those jobs where your day cannot usually be predetermined. You have no idea what's necessarily going to come into the department, and it's going to require all hands on deck.
Is that like a daily thing? Do you get caught? You have your schedule the way you want, and I'm sure you get those things done. But some of those things probably have to be put aside when an emergency happens, or
yeah, absolutely. So we are never. None of us can really think of the things that come into the Department of Real Estate, but you never know what an audit is going to reveal. You never know what an investigation is going to reveal.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, you sometimes have to exercise the authority that you're given in statute to protect the public. So you're going through to make sure that you've done the proper due diligence that the law requires in order to take the steps necessary to protect the public. And that's really the paramount part of the job, is making sure that you're there and ready and available and willing to exercise the statutory authority to step in when things start to go terribly wrong.
Let's get to some of those things that the consumers need to be concerned about, because I know that we've talked before in my previous career about real estate scams. Yeah. And that was probably, 6 months ago, a year ago? Are they just as bad as they were then? What would you say to consumers right now, I guess, who have vacant land or people who are buying property? What would you tell them in terms of caution? I
would say that the Department of Real Estate does a much better job in working interdepartmentally with the State Attorney General's office to tackle property theft. And so it's very much
Is it happening?
On our radar. It is happening since November, which is when we started tracking formally the complaints of somebody is trying to steal my property, they're trying to sell it, and they aren't the owner of it. We've had over 55 cases. I think we're tracking like 57 cases that have come in. And that's just the ones that have come in through the Department of Real Estate. The State Attorney General's office is also accepting those types of complaints. And so very much happening.
How do these things go down typically?
Typically, it's vacant land or houses that are inside probate or houses that are owned by people who are out of state and they're vacant, and there's an opportunity for somebody to come in and assume the identity of a seller. Okay. It involves identity theft. They have documentation that is created for the criminal to appear to be the person who owns this property. Yeah. They go out and they try to find a real estate agent to list the property for sale.
Okay. Now, you were a real estate agent. You were in the industry for 30 years or?
Yes.
Yeah. So and I don't know if you saw it at that time too. Yes. So kind of the intricacies of how these things work. Right?
Yes. So if it seems too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true.
How does it? Okay. So take me kind of from the beginning. So a consumer might see a piece of land for sale on Zillow or some other place, or just on Craigslist, or where do they typically? Do you know how this gets started?
So all of the above. The criminal will try to sell the property any way that they can. But typically what we're finding is they run it through a real estate licensee. So they'll contact a real estate licensee and say, hit hard times, need to sell this piece of land.
Which they don't own.
Quick, willing to price a little bit below market value. They don't care what you're charging as far as your compensation. They just need somebody to say yes, who's going to list and market and facilitate the sale of that property.
Because it's legitimate that way. It
seems legitimate. It gives a level of legitimacy to any buyer that's coming in when you see that real estate for sale sign there. But you never actually meet that seller. They don't really know what their property is worth. When you say, well, what are you hoping to get for it? Or, most people who own their properties have a pretty good idea of what they think that property is supposed to bring them for sale. Right. And so there are some red flags out there that we've been training licensees on to look for in a real estate sale.
Okay. Now, is that okay? So for real now, do some of these real estate people get sucked in?
Yes.
Okay. And what happens in those cases? Do they end up listing them? It goes on MLS?
A lot of times they end up listing them, and that's where escrow officers and title companies really become a great partner, because they are also on high alert for this type of crime that is happening out there. And they have some additional tools to actually start to verify, is the seller bona fide, the real owner of the property? And so a lot of times we can stop it there when an escrow is opened and the escrow officer is looking into the title of the property.
Okay. So, yeah, I've seen cases that have gone actually to escrow, right, where people have put money down on the property almost to the point where it could be sold out from under the real owner.
Mm-hmm.
Now, have you seen cases where it's actually been sold?
Yes.
You have.
We have seen cases where it's been sold, and it's devastating to the property owners when it's sold. It starts a legal battle that doesn't necessarily end in that property owner getting that property back. And sometimes the title insurance that they had covering that property doesn't cover fraud. And so their property was stolen, and they end up not having any recourse.
So the scammer got their money and then left all this behind,
Yeah,
right?
and
Where the person who's a real owner and the person who paid to buy the property are now having to fight. So the owner doesn't have that property because it's theirs?
that's right. The new buyer didn't know they were buying stolen property. And so the new buyer is an innocent victim in the entire thing as well. And so then it ends up in front of a judge to decide who's the real owner of the property, the original owner who actually never sold the property, or the buyer who didn't know they were buying stolen property.
Does a case come to mind? I might have asked you this before, and I didn't prepare you for this, but is there any case, is it a typical case or an extreme case that comes to mind that you could share?
The one that's most known of in the Valley was done to a real estate broker. So somebody who was really savvy in the real estate industry. She and her family had inherited her father's house, and scammers came in, criminals came in and assumed her father's identity, and they successfully sold the house. She was very lucky, because in this case, that house was sold to Zillow, and Zillow gave it back to her.
Oh, wow.
So she was very, very, very lucky in who the end buyer was. But had the end buyer been a person without the means of Zillow Corporation, I guess, it could have gone very differently for her.
And we're going to talk about protections. I want to get to that. But first, you said something about real estate, posing as real estate agents. Is that what's going on now too? And how extreme is that?
We have people posing as real estate licensees, but it's more in the scams that involve rental properties.
Okay.
And so they're trying to get that initial, hey, this property is for rent. You want to hold it, apply here, take this money here.
Okay.
Those are bad actors that we're chasing off the shores of the United States. And so shutting down those international websites is a very, very challenging task for the Department of Real Estate.
Rental scams. And so what happens to these guys? Do they take pictures of properties that were for sale at some point, or in rental cases, maybe they're for sale and they put them as now for rent, and then there's a email address and they ask for a deposit up front?
Exactly. So they will typically say for sale by or for rent by owner, and then that owner just happens to be on vacation, and but you can see all of the pictures, and if you're interested in it, then they will hold it for you if you send them a big deposit.
Okay.
And it looks legitimate, and they're stealing licensed real estate entities' identities and creating these fake websites, or these real websites that are fake companies or stolen identities of companies. And you think that you're sending your money into a real estate brokerage. But even if you go to the Department of Real Estate and you search for that entity name, you're going to find that that's a licensed entity, because the criminal has stolen the identity of that licensed entity.
Okay. All right. So let's stick with rentals, I guess, either one. But let's talk about what you should do if you are looking for a rental and you find something. What's your advice to these people?
My advice would be, if the person can't let you into the house to go and see it, they probably are not legitimate. Anyone who says, send me money, go look through the windows. If there's a real estate sign out there that says for sale, and they're telling you, oh no, I'm changing my mind and I've had a falling out with that real estate licensee, they don't know what they're talking about. No. Our laws are very specific on whether or not a real estate licensee can have a sign in a front yard.
Yeah.
And so that sign is most likely very legitimate, and you should recognize those as red flags and not send your money in there. Usually these offers that you see online are the ones that are too good to be true. So market rent might be $2,200 in this area, but this amazing, beautiful house is available for $1,800. And so a lower than market rental price is also a red flag. And then them saying, oh, the owners are just on vacation, but they'll hold it for you, and you can't get in.
And they can't meet with you.
Yeah, but you can't get in to actually go and see the house and walk upstairs yourself, but there's pictures online. Those are all just huge red flags that you should not be sending your money there.
Okay, and in terms of sale, people who have vacant property, who have homes that they're not in, I guess, what would you tell them?
Oh, well, I would say sign up for Title Alert with your county recorder's office. I think almost every county across the state of Arizona has it, and by January of 25, every county will have it.
What does that do?
That will notify you if somebody has recorded anything against you or your property at the county recorder's office. So at least you'll kind of get an early alert. I would say contact your lawmaker, because this last legislative session, there was a bill that was proposed. I'm going to say HB 2406, but I might not be 100% on that. But it was a bill that was designed to take that reactive system and make it a proactive system. There was a proposal to have notaries collect a thumbprint in addition to a signature, because if they were already a criminal in the criminal system, then you would be able to know who is stealing these properties and go out there and have a better shot of arresting them. But that legislation failed. And it was amazing to me, all the different special interest groups that came out in this legislative session and said, we recognize this is a problem, and we recognize that something needs to be done, but don't ask us to do any extra steps. Don't ask us to be the people to actually get those protections across. And so unless consumers and property owners contact their state representatives and contact their state senators and say, I own property and I want the state of Arizona to do everything you can within your powers to make sure that a criminal can't come in and steal my identity and steal my property from me, then it's just going to be those special interest groups that are down there lobbying.
All right. And in terms of buying a property, because that can also be a concern, what would you say to people to make sure that they're buying the property from the owner?
That you're buying a bona fide property. It's a lot harder for a buyer,
title company,
to realize it, right? So the title company is certainly a line of defense, but if I were buying a property today, I would pay very, very close attention to the type of title insurance I was buying. I would make sure that I was buying a full coverage policy. Every title company is going to have sort of a matrix of all the offerings of title insurance, and you want to make sure the insurance policy that you're purchasing, which is a one-time cost at close of escrow, covers in the event that somebody tries to steal the property once you're the owner of it. Covers forgery, covers theft.
And what concerns can they bring to you? We should probably wrap this up, actually. We're talking a long time, went quickly. So what can the Department of Real Estate do? What concerns can you handle if someone has them? What can they bring to you?
Oh, well, absolutely. So we are a consumer protection. We are here to protect consumers in the real estate industry. So if you have had a bad experience with any of our licensees, you can file a complaint with the Department of Real Estate. If it is at all real estate related and something is happening, you can bring it to the Department of Real Estate. If it's outside of our jurisdiction, we're going to help you get to the appropriate government authority and agency so that you can get your complaint heard there.
Okay. And so you're basically saying be aware.
Be aware.
If you own property, if it's vacant property, there are some concerns. If you're buying property, you want to make sure that you're buying it from the owner. If you're renting, same thing.
Vacant land, if you own it free and clear, you may want to talk to an attorney about putting some measures onto your title that will put some roadblocks and barriers there to anybody being able to steal your property. So a lot of things that people need to be aware of, but loss of a piece of real estate is a significant damage to any person's financial wealth.
Commissioner Susan Nicholson, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. Great advice.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Joe.
Joining me now is Cheryl Chase Berkson, owner of Chase Pacific Property Management in San Diego, a BBB accredited business. Cheryl, let me ask you, we just talked to the Arizona Real Estate Commissioner about scams going on in Arizona. I would guess there are scams going on in San Diego as well. Are you seeing that when it comes to land purchases, rentals, those kinds of things?
Yes, and that's again a great question, Joe. We are seeing that happen I know it's in the whole state, but specifically here in San Diego, we're seeing people where they are, let's take on the real estate end first, because we do real estate as well. What we're seeing right now is there's a lot of desperation out there. So there's desperate people do desperate things. And what they're doing is, and we're seeing example for sale by owner sign might go on a property. Specific situation was one where there was a commercial property. There was a for sale by owner. Actually, it got to the point where a buyer gave the supposed owner a check for the down payment, went into escrow, but the escrow officer said something's not right here. Something's not lining up with the ownership and the title recording and so forth. So she pulled it, red flagged it, and turned out absolutely it was a fraudulent scam. Okay. So we're seeing that kind of thing. So I would say, people have to be very, very aware of who they're dealing with. If it doesn't seem right, it probably is not.
I do want to go into those protections because that's great. And I think that's what people want to know. Let me get into a little bit more of the problem too. So in these cases, are there also people who own land, maybe vacant land or homes that possibly are in probate or aren't being occupied right now? Should they have concerns, do you think, as well in your area?
They should, to a point. I think it's very, very important. What can happen on vacant land is that if it's not attended to, may have weeds on it, just not looked after, people could actually go and perhaps start building a structure on it. Wow. And say, hey, nobody's using it, nobody's driving by, we're taking it. And then it turns into what's called adverse possession. And that happens, and the owner finds out about it, they need to contact an attorney ASAP. Okay. That is something that could happen. We don't see that happening so often. I will say I've spoken with title agent, one I specifically use, and he said in the county right now with all the recordings, not seen anything that's gotten to the point where title is actually passed, but there's been many attempts to do so, but it's been caught prior to the actual final recording.
Okay. Now, has it been caught by the title company in these cases, or do you know?
It's right. The safety net that people have is that it's in the recording office of each county. Everything has to absolutely match up. Names, title, transition, timeframes. If that doesn't match up and the paperwork isn't signed by everybody and notarized by proper entities, recordings will not happen. The county recorder's office is their best, should I say, safety net for any kind of title transfer. The title people I've talked with said at this point in San Diego, they've seen none that have transferred illegally. They've seen it attempted, but it's been caught at that point where if it does get to the county recorder's office, they're not recording them because something is not right. Okay. And it's a heads up. The recorder's office, they're looking for it.
Now, much like Phoenix, and probably more so, the land values are crazy high in San Diego, I would think right now. Is that part of the problem? I think you were hinting on that maybe a little bit earlier about maybe desperate situations. Are people having a hard time? Are people going for the best deals because property values are so high? And is that a problem?
They seem to be, but it could happen anywhere. But the tendency, the direction is going to go for the more expensive areas. There's vacant land in La Jolla. Yeah. There's vacant land in the ranch areas. I mean, there's a lot of vacant land in San Diego. So yes, that is. The big thing is vacancies. Right now, we have just under 75,000 vacancies in the county of San Diego, and there's about 10,000 homeless. So people are doing things out there to, find housing or maybe start a structure. I do have another specific example. We manage a property with a vacant lot in La Jolla overlooking the ocean. The people next door decided they were going to do some major reconstruction to their home, put in a pool, and they started building temporary structures on this vacant land. We had to jump on it. Attorneys went in. They were also draining all their pool water down to the slope below, to the owners on that property below. So it's been going on for over a year, but the attorneys finally have it worked out. They have taken, he is now, he's got charges against him, and it's been a very messy situation. But the most important thing is that people keep an eye on their properties, commercial, residential, or vacant.
Keep an eye on the property. And you were talking a little bit before, maybe this was off before we started recording, about what the county is doing in terms of on the titles to warning people if somebody's recording something. Is that what's going on?
Yes, Joe. Thank you for bringing that up. In the County of San Diego, people can actually go onto the assessor parcel, not the assessor, probably the assessor's website, along with the recording in the county clerk's office, and they can go on the site, click on something that actually says owner alert. It is a free service from the county recorder's office that should there be an unwarranted lien or a change of title, they notify the homeowner immediately, because you put in your phone number and you put in your APN number, and it's a free service versus some of these other companies that advertise on television and you can pay such a money. That's the same thing they do, but the county recorder's office here offers it for free.
Okay.
Very, very important. I think everybody should be going online and putting in their name, their number, and their APN number on that.
And they're actually doing that in Maricopa County now too. Hopefully the whole state will have it soon, and maybe in California as well. So what about, all right, so we talked about people who have properties, keeping an eye on them, what they can do through the recorder's office. People who are buying properties, or are there concerns about that as well? And not just vacant land, but other properties. Have you seen it? Has it gotten to the point where people are being, that homes that aren't really for sale are being pretended to be for sale by these scammers, and people are entering into contracts for homes that really aren't for sale?
They are, we see it. Nothing has come to fruition, though. That's the good news, but there's being attempts. Sometimes they will go and they will advertise a property. We get that even in the management division, where we'll have a property for rent, and all of a sudden somebody is saying, gosh, $800 a month, I want to see it immediately. And actually, it's a $3,500 a month rent, but they've changed it, and they're trying to, they'll advertise it, trying to get people to send them money to see it, and we'll give you the lockbox code if you send us X number of dollars. People are falling for it, and it's been wrong. Our website actually has been scammed twice. Not in the last 2 or 3 years, but even prior to that, where they took our logo and everything, and were advertising properties up in the LA County with very low amounts, and then found out, we were getting calls like, is this for real? It's like, it is not for real.
Oh, man. Well, the good thing is that people called.
They checked on it. Wise people out there, you have to be very suspicious. Unfortunately, in this world that we live in, you have to be very cautious. Clicking on things, responding to anything that asks for money. No, you run from that.
So prices that are too good to be true, is that typically whether it's rental or the other?
Prices that are too good to be true.
Okay. And there's a way to check that out of the area to see what rents are going for typically. And then I guess if they ask for money up front and they don't want to,
that is not done. That is not done.
Okay.
In the industry, that is not something.
Okay. Yeah, you were saying that before, because we did a little story about this before. You were saying that that's not what you asked for.
Absolutely not. If somebody wants to see a property, be it a real estate, residential for sale, or a property management rental, we set up an appointment and we meet them there. We will never give out a lockbox code without somebody from my staff being there to show a person in. And we're very cautious. And then if they are interested, we vet them very well. They have to go online and apply. But that's how we handle things. We ask for no money up front unless they are accepted by the owner as the new tenant, or money up front in a sale, for instance. That only happens when it goes into escrow. Now, that could happen and give money, but then it's probably going to be caught in the course of escrow with the title company and the escrow officers.
All right.
Yeah.
Cheryl Chase Berkson, owner of Chase Pacific Property Management in San Diego, a BBB accredited business. Great information. Thank you for all of your knowledge here. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me, Joe. It's been a delight. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Before hiring, go to bbb.org, check reviews, and for accredited businesses that agree to operate ethically. And see all my podcasted videos, joeknowsbetter.bbbcommunity.org. I'm Joe Ducey with the Better Business Bureau, helping businesses and consumers get it right.